I've known I've been queer since I was 5, so I didn't come out till I was about 19. But it was only really when I came out that I found my self-belief, my self-worth, my confidence and my power. My grades just suddenly shot up. This was mid to late 80s, and that was the time when the gay men who were 5 or 10 years older than me, well, they all contracted HIV, AIDS, and then died. I spent my 20s going to funerals. You probably spent your 20s going to weddings. That really impacted me. That is what has driven me in my life, in that I have quite a visceral reaction when I see people being denied opportunities because of who or what or where they are. I dedicate a fair amount of my waking hours to trying to make some of that stuff better and afford those opportunities to other people. Allow yourself to have that dream. This is where I want to go. And this shouldn't be where other people allow you to go or where it's appropriate for you to go. This should be where you want to go, restriction-free, untrammeled, and spend some time sitting with yourself and going, what does it need to get there? And where am I? And what's that gap? And what can I do to make that happen?
Hello, everybody. My name is Rugare Gomo, and I am your high-performance business and leadership coach. This show exists to empower you to dream, forge your own path, and be the leader of your life. And today, it is my greatest pleasure to introduce you to Patrick McCann. Hi, Patrick.
Hi, Rugare. Thank you very much. Oh, God, I see you're going to be really high energy. I'm going to have to... I do have some questions. I'm going to need to jam that quite fast. I'll do what I can. It is very early in the morning, is my excuse.
Absolutely. So, of course, I'm here in Australia, Sydney, and you're in London, the United Kingdom, and it's wonderful. So I'm very grateful that you've had the time, and I just want to introduce you to people because I want people to really know who you are. So Patrick is the Director of Learning of Linklaters LLP, a global law firm, one of the large law firms here in the world. Now, he's also the chair of City of London Law Society Training Committee, the co-CEO of City Sanctuary, the co-founder, Social Welfare Solicitors Qualification Fund, and his pronouns are he, him. And I just love that. I just love everything about who you are. For me, you are a pioneer. And today I want to deep dive into what you've been creating in the world and the difference you're making to people, and to get to know who Patrick is, because I can't find any information regarding your backstory. All I can find is what you're creating and how you're changing people's lives. So I'm interested.
Then that's a good thing. That's a good thing. Maybe I've put things in dark parts of the internet. Who knows? Well, yeah. Sorry, it's interesting because I always think I'm a complete open book, and everybody tells me that, and I think it's one of my it's a strength for me, and it's a weakness for some others that I'm too open for them. They find that a real problem. But yes, so shall I just tell you a bit about myself?
Absolutely. Tell me about yourself and what you've been creating.
Thank you for that kind introduction. Do you know, honestly, I think the thing I'm most is the husband to my husband, and the thing I am second is the dad to my 2 gorgeous dogs, Maxwell and Smith, and the third thing I am is a good friend to my friends, and then the fourth thing I am is probably not a good enough son to my exacting mother, should we say? And then the work stuff, sort of comes after that. Obviously, at work, you say work comes first. It's an important part of my life, but it's not everything. So I'm a fairly mixed up kid. In that I grew up as a little queer lad in both Germany and England. My dad was British Army, and my mum was a German woman that he met in Germany while he was stationed over there. And we moved every 20 months or so with my dad's job. So you'd move country or at least city. And that continued till I was 10, and then I was bullied I was a clever kid at school for sure, in an army school. Sorry, horror story. Let me tell you about the army schools in Germany. They used to place you on a table according to how intelligent you were. And so that I think in like third year juniors, we were on they were based on planets of the solar system. And for reasons I don't quite remember, Mars was the cleverest table, which was the table I Pluto, that was it. No, you had no chance. Isn't that awful? And then every week they used to give you a maths and a spelling test, and that would go up on the wall. You like 7, 8, and you knew exactly where you were compared to everybody else in the class, which is fine if you're doing all right, but not fine if you're not. So just a terrible system to be constantly evaluated and judged by other people. Anyway, come away from that. So I was a little queer kid. I was German and English, and with a German mother on a British camp in Germany and so that made it. You definitely stood out, and you became, just noticeable. And I was a very girly boy. Played with dolls. I came second in the school skipping championships. Really annoyed by that.
I would have joined you in the skipping championships.
But Lisa Butler beat me, and it was only because I thought I'd done a false start, so I slowed down. And then sped up again anyway. That's fine. I'm over it. It's fine. I'm 56. I'm over it. Though I had quite an interesting life in that respect. And because you move every 20 months or so, you don't really forge deep connections. And I jumped a year at school. I went to a secondary comprehensive, which also had a boarding school attached in England. My parents were in Germany. My brother was in that school. He was the school sports champion. He was captain of every team, etc., etc. And I came in as this little girly boy, got put into all the sports teams, got taken out of them very quickly. And I remember Mr. Hook, the games teacher, saying to me, go and play, he said, go and play hockey with the girls. That's where you belong, which was so much rougher than rugby.
That would have been so much fun. It's like, shots, finally somebody sees me for who I am.
It was scary. I mean, 3 menstrual girls with hockey stick. It's like... Anyway, point of the story is I never really felt that I fitted in, and if I fitted in, it was with the group that was we were the nerds. If ever you've ever watched an 80s sort of frat house comedy movie, I was in there's one that was too tall, there was one that was too fat, they were all too intelligent, they were no good at sports. One of them spoke 5 languages. It was that sort of group that I was in, and I was the smallest kid in school because I jumped a year. I was the smallest out of 1,000, and that really sat with me. And so I always felt sort of on the outside. And I had my friends, and we were close, but I still felt on the outside. And then I went to university, and I was 17, so I was younger than anybody else. And it was full of really privileged, really public school kids who hadn't got into Oxford or Cambridge and ended up going to King's College in London, which is where I was. And I felt really inferior because they all seemed so confident and so fab. I knew I was gay. I've known I've been queer since I was 5, but I didn't want to particularly come out until I was ready. So I didn't come out until I was about 90. But it was only really when I came out that I found my self-belief, my self-worth, my confidence, and my power. And so I came out in my 4th year. I was president, the LGBT SOC, president of the SDP Liberal Democrat SOC, and just became a force, right? My grades just suddenly shot up. And I left there incredibly confident. But this was in the late 80s, mid to late 80s. And that was the time when the gay men who were 5 or 10 years older than me they all contracted HIV and then AIDS and then died. So that was quite weird. And I remember, I went to when I started working as a lawyer, I went to the YMCA as because that's where I knew my people were.
Yes.
But you would just see them. You'd see these beautiful. It was always the first ones to go were always the beautiful ones. You'd see these beautiful men that were 5 or 10 years that looked like Greek gods, and then you'd see them get thinner and sort of begin to just diminish. And there was a thing that people would get, which, in my head was like a death mask. It was a grayness and a darkness under the eyes and a sort of a lost sparkle. And you knew, 'cause from there it would then be walking sticks, it would then be wheelchairs, and it would then be a wooden box and then an urn. And so that I didn't realize at the time, but that really impacted me. And I also worked pro bono as a junior solicitor for the Terence Higgins Trust in their legal department, and they the Terence Higgins Trust is the biggest sexual health charity in the country, and at the time was predominantly, if not exclusively, known for its HIV and AIDS work. So we would get clients referred to us who quite often they had got a diagnosis, so they'd thought, I'll just load up the credit cards because I'm going to die, and then they would get treatment, and then they would live a bit too long, and then the bailiffs would be coming around the house, literally banning on them. So you'd have to do that, or they did die, and they're a mess, or they couldn't do their work, so they would not be able to pay their bill, or they would be asked to leave work, or they'd be evicted from their homes and all that sort of stuff. So that was quite that was like 10, 20 hours I did a week on that. And that was quite a hard piece for me. And I didn't realize it at the time. I just started going out with what is now my husband. And I would spend most of my weekends doing this sort of work. And it's taken me a few decades to realize that is what has driven me in my life, in that I saw a bunch of, I can't stress how beautiful some of these men were. They were just like something Michelangelo would have sculpted. And then, when you're coming out, you want to see people.
Yes.
You want healthy, just proud, beautiful. And then you was still, yeah. And so what I now realize is that what that set in me was this sort of drive to honor them by doing stuff that matters, alongside, earning a decent amount of money doing a work in a big corporate commercial law firm. And so that's really driven me. I want to sort of honor them by making stuff happen. And I really have a hate is too strong word, but I have quite a visceral reaction when I see people being denied opportunities because of who or what or where they are. So I dedicate a fair amount of my waking hours to trying to make some of that stuff better and afford those opportunities to other people. So my friends find it really annoying because I'm just constantly agitated, constantly on the go. When I wake up, I'm up and I'm going for stuff, and I'm not very good at relaxing. So at some point, I really like this to calm down a bit. So that's another couple of things. I was a fitness instructor for a few years, so I did all that aerobics and step and aqua and circuits and body pump and all of that sort of stuff alongside working in law. I was quite good at it, actually. And I did wear the Madonna mic. I did have the neon. I didn't ever succumb to a headband, I'm pleased to say. But
one day, it's not too late. Yeah, it's not too late, Patrick.
Me, trust me. And then I've recently been diagnosed as neurodiverse with either ADHD or ADD. I forget which, because I wasn't really listening because my mind's all over the shot. And that helped me recognize who I am and that I do live with anxiety, that I very quickly accept jobs to do and then really strive to get them done. And I almost invent jobs. And I have a really big rescuer tendency. I like to find people or situations that need help. So I do a lot of that. Drives my husband absolutely crazy. He's like, please, can you not? So there you go. I'm the opposite of a chill person.
And he adores you completely and entirely for exactly who you are, your husband.
Short up, Rugare. So apologies for that. But that's our...
I love it. Thank you so much for sharing your story. I relate a lot to your life story. Growing up in Zimbabwe myself, in the early 90s, 1 in 4 adults were HIV positive. Uncles, aunts, friends dying on a weekly basis, where the government actually had to stop and prohibit people going to funerals because that became the full-time job. It was horrifying. So even when you were talking about and in Zimbabwe, the code was, they've got TB. So the moment you heard somebody they have got TB, what that was code for, they were HIV positive or now dealing with the AIDS related
pneumonia in the lungs, white days.
Exactly.
It's so interesting. I had an African client, and she passed in the hospital, and it was all about who was going to look after her daughter after she went. And I seem to recall it went to one of her sisters. But it was very interesting how little was spoken about what was going on in Africa over here, and how little assistance was given to Africa and to gay men over here. Had it been white straight men in America, it would have been sorted in a couple of weeks, I'm sure.
Got together, fundraised a few $1 billion, and kumbaya. So it's, I'm
so I'm sorry that you encountered that. I often, when I try and this must have been like this for you. You mentioned the full-time job. I try and say to try and get people to understand. I usually say I spent my 20s going to funerals. You probably spent your 20s going to weddings, and it is a bit like that. It just became a way of life. Became very accepted. Became what you do. It was like, do you come here often? Because you'd be in the same place of commemoration. And I don't know about you, Rugare, but it we just seem to accept it, I think. And there was anger. I was in ACT UP, which was quite an angry political group in the AIDS space, and an outrage as well, like the name, indicated some sort of dissatisfaction with stuff. But you just sort of went, oh, okay, that's what it is. And I don't know whether this happened to you. I don't recall anybody, maybe in the community, but not outside. I don't recall anybody going, "You're right. How are you?" I don't remember any saying that.
I'm like, what? No.
All right. I'm sure you weren't all right. You mask it, don't you?
Absolutely. You completely mask it. And by the way, when this was happening, I'm 8 years old. So I don't even know I'm gay. And so for me,
did you eat yourself? Rugare, did you eat yourself?
Sorry, I didn't know I was gay.
Rugare, hello.
Patrick, one of the funniest stories is that I came to the UK. So our stories are bizarrely similar. So I was in university my 4th year when I came to the UK to tell my brother, who was living in the UK at the time, that I'm gay. And his response was, "Duh, I already know." And I was shocked. I was like, how could you know?
I don't know whether this happens for you, Rugare, but when I see film of myself or photographs of myself, I'm like, who is that? Totally over the top. Because when you're inside it, unless you're putting it on for a show, you just sort of think, definitely my voice is deeper in my head than it is when I hear it.
Totally.
And it's taken my own hand gestures and go, this is my people's language. This is how we exist. This is my community. And be happy with it, right?
Yes.
And that's so interesting to me. I do want to tell you this story, Rugare. Just one of the things I set up last year was a development program called the LLP, which stands for the LGBT Lawyers Program. And what we tried to do was get queer lawyers from across 20 different law firms who were sort of at that late 20s, early 30s age, and go, okay, what are you going to do with the rest of your career? And, in terms of how are you going to take yourself out to clients? How are you going to build a business? How are you going to, develop a team? How are you going to deliver profitable work? But then also, how are you going to deliver back into the community? Because you're the privileged, and you have an opportunity. You have an opportunity to. Well, we started with pay it forward, but I call it gay it forward. So to gay it forward back into the community. And one of the things we did was a run through. So we would have half the delegates on one side, half on the other side, and someone would run through the middle, and they would go through like this, and they would have their hands clapped by everyone, and we would just all be, screaming and whooping. And it sounds a really stupid thing, but what it did and what I saw, because the 30 people did it and the faculty did it, is that was the bit that I don't think we get as children to be, and this is your point, Rugare, to be sort of validated as, proper, rounded, valuable, contributed members of society. We have to sort of, suppress ourselves or mask ourselves or not talk about ourselves. And so just in that opportunity, you have these people in their late 20s, early 30s running through, and they were, we're not going to do it, not going to do it. And honestly, by the end of it, they're like, let me at it. It sits on my LinkedIn page if you if you have a look at it there are some videos there. It was just a beautiful moment to do that, right? Because, you know, we need to give ourselves the childhood that we maybe didn't have.
Completely. And, you know, I started my legal career in 2008. And I had no role modeling of what it was to be gay. So I started as a lawyer in utter fear. So I'd go to work and every day I'd be like, you know, will the partner give me work? Will the partner give me work? Will the partner give me work? And, you know, am I not being too gay? Am I not being too gay? Am I not too gay? Will I be put in front of clients? Will I be put in front of clients? So, of course, the quality of my work was atrocious, Patrick. Yeah. Atrocious. Because I did not and could not bring my full self to work whatsoever. You know, so I've missed out on the opportunity of what would it be like, you know, being fully self-expressed and practicing law in that regard.
Yes. That's so interesting because, you know, it was a bit like that for me. Oh my God, can we just have a moment for your teacup? Let's just have that. I know.
I didn't know I was gay.
If only there'd been a sign. Oh, absolutely, this story. I met one of my husband's school friends a few years back, and my husband is Catholic. He comes from a Catholic family, and he'd gone to Catholic school, and they were discussing when they were teenagers what they would give up for Lent, and my husband said, "I'm giving up Diana Ross." If only Nesvini died. But I agree with you. I think it's this is the thing that and I put a post about this on it on LinkedIn not so long ago. I bet you get this, and I'm not sure how to feel about this, but I get, oh, you're so brave. It's so brilliant that you're role modeling, and it's so brave that you're out there being yourself. And I think people genuinely, you know, mean that as a lovely thing. Mm-hmm. And it sort of sits a bit uneasily with me because I'm like, why should it be brave for me to be? No one says to Justin from public school with his wife and children and the ski lodge in Tuscany. No one says, oh, how brave of you to talk about wine and rugby and opera and your children's poetry.
Your girlfriends.
And you go, no, there's that. And it's just what we should be doing is dismantling the system that means we have to be brave. And bravery, of course, means take a risk because there is some danger involved. We need to get rid of the danger, and then everybody can be themselves and just accept if someone is this, if someone is that, if someone does this, if someone loves those people, if someone is this color or that color, we've just got to go, that's fine. You know, space for all. So I just find that really, really interesting. And then the other thing, regarding just while we're doing that, because I think it's supposed to be uplifting if someone tells me, please keep telling me, but just know it puts me into some conflict. I did a talk for one of the law schools that we use, a great law school, about for last year for Pride, or was it this year? Maybe it was this year for Pride, about LGBT history. And so I did a bit from like the 20s through to the 2000s about how things have changed. And so I'm, you know, this, and then we got this, and then we got this, and then this happened, and then there was a step back here, and then we get this. And I got to the end of it, and I said, I'm sure we're all feeling like really celebratory, but I'm actually feeling really upset because we had to get those things were denied to us all that time.
Yes.
And we had to get them. so
yes.
I need a moment to know that the people that went before me had, you know, lots of awful things happen to them because that's what the culture and society and the mood and the law was. And so I find it quite difficult to just celebrate stuff because I'm sad I need to have some more therapy.
It's powerful what you're saying because, for example, you won't believe it, Patrick, but I am the first gay Black African Australian to publish a memoir.
You're kidding me.
Yes. The first. I'm 40. I just turned 40. And in Australia, I am the first gay Black African Australian to publish a memoir. And it's my life story, you know, what's in all. And of course, people are celebrating. But what I also have is excruciating pain. like I'm celebrating because I've done something that most people aren't doing because there isn't a safe space or opportunity to do it. But for me to even get this far has been excruciatingly painful. And there are many people like me in Australia and around the world.
It's just, yeah. And well done on having the life that merits you writing a book and then getting it published. But how sad that you're the first, right? Let's hope you're nowhere near the last, right? Because there will be lines that will have not been um uh, I want, before I get to celebrate, have not been acknowledged, let alone celebrated, let alone published, let alone. Well done, you. I definitely don't have a book in me for sure. So
You've got 20 plus for every month of the year. So we need to do your backstory then every month moving forward.
I know, too dull. But yes, it's so. Yeah, so I just wonder whether as a community and other underrepresented communities, whether there should be some space for us to just go, can I just process that particular emotion before I get to the hot pants and the disco ball and the Danny Minogue remixes?
Absolutely.
All of which is, great and valid, and God knows I enjoy it, and I want one pants. It's both a good and a bad thing in the time. But we need a bit of time, I think, just to go, what was it? So that's a lot of my stuff is I just think about the people, boys on dance floors that I saw that then disappeared, like literally like in a film, just disappeared. It's I think I've got to be allowed to feel a bit sad about that, and that
Absolutely
weigh on me, and then if I can turn that into something positive, then I think that's a good thing. I'm always banging on about this to the youngsters. I have to be mid story. Couple of years ago.
Well, I like the way you say it's the youngsters, but you're young too. Don't forget that.
Definitely not 40. I have to tell this story. So a few years ago, one of my team members came in weeping with laughter. And I said, watch, because I need a moment. She said, I need a moment because this is so fun. She's convulsing in laughter. And she met one of the younger lawyers in a department that she looked after. And he revealed to her that he was part of the LGBT network. And she said, oh, my boss is co-senior sponsor of that network. You probably know him, Patrick. And he said, could you not? This is the bit where she was actually laughing. She goes, oh, we love having Patrick in the group because he is queer history. So it's so nice because he's lived it and he's always teaching us. And it's so nice having someone so old still working. This was a few years ago, mind. And then he said, I love having someone my parents' age in the workplace. And she was lit. And every time she saw me for months afterwards, she would just see me at Combat. So I am the queer history. There is a really big piece. Oh, you're doing this, sorry, about teaching those life experiences, teaching the heritage, the culture, the tradition.
Absolutely.
The context, the background. It's really important to know that, if you have any rights, entitlements, privileges, niceness to your life, it's probably because someone suffered previously and someone fought and dealt with the consequences of fighting to get you those rights. And we're nowhere near where we used to be, especially not if you're trans or non-binary, for example. But yes, sorry, Rugare, I do go on.
Amazing. No, not at all, because you're touching on many important points. Like, for example, even today, I'm able to share with you that I have pain and joy.
Yeah.
Nobody gets that. I'm able to say that because you said that. I'm like, I'm you, you are me. But if I share that, most people are only celebrating my joy. I have a client who is a straight black man, and he said yesterday, can't even talk. He said yesterday, this is what happens when I'm too excited. He said yesterday that he has been so nervous for me since I published my book because he understood it's not just one narrative of I published the book, kumbaya. It's the pain that's also there.
It's a lot.
The sacrifices to get here. And of course, I didn't get here alone. Hundreds, if not thousands of people hundreds and thousands. It's a lot of people who have been advocating for me.
Yes. And I mean, I can only just begin to imagine what, I thought my life was not hard, but I thought I had a few, I call them layers, things to negotiate, but I can only imagine yours. God, yeah, that's a lot.
So, like, you're in a position, what I'm going to use this word, a position of power, a position of influence. You're the director of learning in a global law firm. It makes me want to weep. It makes me want to weep. Thank you. Thank you.
No, yeah, a pleasure. Well, it's interesting. I worked my way up. I've been in 5 international or global London headquartered law firms, and I started at Denton's. Then I worked in commercial conferencing. Then I went to Bird, Bowen Leighton Pays, and Herbert Smith, Free Hills, and Linklaters. And each time all the firms would deny this, but I bounced up a little bit. So I've gone up a league each time. And it's really good that I'm really pleased to have made it here. And, I've been in this role for 8 years. I think I'm the longest person in this role, in this organization. And trust me, it's not particularly an easy job, and it's not an unchallenging environment. And you do have to bring a lot of yourself. What you were just saying, you have to bring your whole self. You have to bring your whole self and then another 50%. And then you go home depleted at the weekends. And most of my weekends are spent, I am the master of the afternoon snooze, trying to open the batteries as a result. But it took me a while to get here, for sure. It took me a good 20 years. The lesson I think I have is I sort of wanted to end up here. I either wanted to end up here, or there's one other Magic Circle firm that I was, particularly interested in. Magic Circle being what they used to call, and maybe still call, 5 of the sort of more preeminent law firms here. And I sort of had in mind that I wanted to end up here, but I haven't applied for a job for about 25 years. I've always been called and then asked to, send something in, but I've not, of my own volition, gone out and looked for jobs. Told you people that have known me or known of me that have contacted me. But I think I could have got here 10 years earlier. If I had gone back what I want, if I'd been open and public about that and gone, okay, well, what they're going to need is for me to demonstrate these things. What I need to do to be able to demonstrate is these things. And if I put myself and my own career ambitions a little bit more in the center, I think I would have got here earlier. So I would definitely say, to anybody, allow yourself to have that dream. Allow yourself to go, this is where I want to go, right? And this shouldn't be where other people allow you to go, or where it's appropriate for you to go, or where people who look or feel or are like you are permitted. This should be where you want to go, restriction free, untrammeled, and spend some time sitting with yourself and going, what does it need to get there, and where am I, and what's that gap, and what can I do to make that happen? And through my coaching work, of which there is not nearly enough, I'd love to do more. It's actually quite scary to think about what you could achieve, because if we don't think about that, then we can just be happy here doing what we're doing and complaining about not getting there. But if you actually go, actually, I could do that, and there's nothing, I think I'm good at my job, but there's nothing. It's not like only I can do it. Lots of people could do this. My gut feel is lots of people don't allow themselves to imagine in that job. Here's the other thing I will say. Sometimes I might make this look easy. It's never easy. Sometimes I might make it look like I'm super, super confident, but I am on anti-anxiety medication, trust me. And my husband has to see, my moments of I just can't do this. But you do find a way through somehow. And so do not assume that the people that are in the big jobs are any more equipped than you are. They might have had experiences that you haven't had, and it might look great, and they might know how to mask and how to project a certain image. But honestly, you look behind it, we're all we all think we're going to be tapped on the shoulder and told we made a big clerical error. Sorry, we didn't mean you. We meant the other. So please do, just what do you want out of life? Because I think we're only here once. And I don't think we're here for very long.
In the best way we understand it so far.
In the best way that we understand it. Shirley MacLaine, the actress, would, she has a different view. But, you're your only client, really. You're the only person over whom you have complete control. You're the only person who has to live with you 24/7, 366. So really, try and get yourself a bit more in your center, I would say, and not be shy about that.
It's very powerful what you're saying, because even for myself, I can come across as extroverted, like I have lots of energy, but I actually spend lots of time. I'm highly introverted, so I keep a lot to myself most of the time. I don't really like going to social engagements. I'm also neurodiverse, by the way. So very, special interests. I'll show up for special interests. So talking to you and talking to people is a special interest. But if there's no special interest, there's a lot of anxiety that shows up, or a lack of confidence to meet life on life's terms. Even today, I couldn't make my own sandwich for food today. So there's certain things that I can be highly good at doing. Business, coaching. But then when it comes to online shopping, can't do it.
Oh, you see, I should do online shopping. No, trust. I'm keeping the internet solvent. Let me tell you, that's so interesting because one of the things you're going to ask me about is a great book, and I just so this was one of them. This is a book by Deborah Zack, and it's called Networking for People who Hate Networking. And
yes,
Deborah is a highly introverted person with the most wicked sense of humor. And she talks about how you can actually get yourself in those situations where it works for you, it works for them, and definitely works for mental health. And I really recommend it. It's been around for a little while now. I remember reading it at the Departure Lounge, coming back off a Thai holiday and just thinking, oh my God, this is amazing. Now, so I'm extreme extrovert. Cannot get on a bus without making friends with the person next to me. I mean, I just can't. If I get on a 1.5 hour train journey, I've made a best friend. I cannot stop. I cannot. It's just I have to.
How do you catch up with them all in the end? Because for me, it's like if I make a friend, then I have to put them in my phone number. Then I literally need to organize like a catch up with them all. So that's where my brain goes to.
So it's so I'm broadcast, not receive, right? So I'm coming up to 12,000 followers on LinkedIn. I like to broadcast. Now, I partly broadcast because that is just how I process stuff, but I also broadcast because I think I can put stuff out there that helps people, that can just go, you're fab, continue to be fab, do these things.
Yes.
And so that's how so I imagine you can possibly create quite intense, deep relationships with people. I find it really, I can walk into a room.
I love it.
I can talk to 200 people, but do not ask me to get deep. Do not talk to me in any sort of secret, anything through my ears, because I just won't. So if my nightmare would be for you to put me in a room with 3 or 4 people that I don't know, that would put me in 200.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, that for me is my heaven.
Yeah, no, not at all. So yes, so like dinners. One of my when they were doing the questionnaire about neurodiversity, one of the things they said was, do you always get up from the dinner table before everybody else, and when it's socially unacceptable to do so? And I'm like, yes, absolutely. I mean, I don't want a deep conversation about politics or religion or culture or opera. I just want to go and lie down and watch television, and that's what I'll do.
So
and I imagine you maybe have more deeper conversations, and that's where you're in.
Absolutely. And this is I'm in my happy space right now. I'm talking to you one on one, and then this will get broadcast. So for me, this is my networking, if you want to call it that. I'm building my relationship with you, and then it's art. So after this, it's like I've got my relationship with you, and I love you, and I will maintain that relationship. And afterwards, it's art. That's how it lives.
Yeah, I like working, but for me, it takes a lot of effort for me to listen. Sorry, this is going to sound wrong. It takes a lot of effort for me to listen to you. Like it's exhausting for me to have to.
Yes.
And usually what I would do I would be writing everything down that you've said, because that's how I keep a record of it. It just literally doesn't go in. Whereas I can talk about myself or things that I'm passionate about. That's relaxing for me. But actually having to listen is really difficult.
I came back from there's an organization called the Pinnacle Foundation, and I'm a mentor. They provide scholarships for the LGBTQI plus community in Australia. I can't keep up with the acronym. And in the event, somebody asked me about my hobbies, and I had a meltdown. I came back home and I complained to my husband. They asked me about my hobbies, because for me, that's like a superficial conversation. Now, for me, that was like, how could they ask me about my hobbies? My whole life is created to live fully. Like, that's how it is. So let's go deeper than that.
Wow. Whereas I like to keep it, at least I'm deep enough to know how shallow I am. I like.
Anyway, gosh, there's so many questions I want to ask you. Right. But before we go to like the specific other questions I want to ask you, tell us more about this lawyer's apprenticeship program that you've created. But wait, can I just do a rave? Gosh, I saw you create on LinkedIn wanting to help somebody as part of the apprenticeship program, and it just touched my heart, because there's so many people, Australia is so multicultural. I know London is very multicultural as well, but there's so many barriers in Australia for people with different accents, different nationalities, if you're not white corporate Australia. And what you're doing, tell us more.
Well, thank you. I co-CEO City Century with an amazing woman called Joanna Hughes, who is, I'm not sure I've ever met anyone quite like Joanna. She is just this incredible ball of energy. She has absolutely doing the right thing and really helping people at the core of what she does. So the issue in this country is, to become a solicitor, you need to do a degree and a legal qualification, which might be within your degree, and then you have to do a solicitor's exam to become a solicitor. So it's usually 5 or 6 years of study post school, and you have to self-finance for the law degree bit. Essentially, that financing of your 3 or 4 years, the fees will be 30,000 plus. You need to live off something. So that's 30, 40.
And these are pounds, people.
Sorry, these are pounds. So
these are pounds.
And then if you're lucky, you get into a firm like mine, we will pay for the post-grad piece of education. But what that means is you have to somehow scrape up, £70,000 worth of debt over 3 or 4 years, which you'll then earn a lot of money. And, you can pay it back if you end up in a decent job. But that's a real challenge for a number of people. For religious reasons, taking on debt might not work for your community. Taking on debt might be something that within your family has not ended well for you. Taking on debt of that size, which is multiples of what your family's income might, just looks too daunting. And not being able to earn money during that period of time and contribute back into the household, or just self-finance yourself if you've come out of the care system, for example, is just impossible. So what the government have done, they'd recognised in this country that there are a number of people who can't get the qualifications that they need to, access the more remunerative roles, have made available essentially an apprenticeship levy, which is a sum of money that any big employer has to pay a sum of money to government into an apprenticeship levy. It's 0.5% of your UK salary fee. And then you can draw down off that and apply it for people that you give an apprenticeship to. So typically people will be people who We target, low socioeconomic background, so free school meals, first to university, parents at the time you're 14, not in, professional rank jobs, etc. Income low, etc. And we try and target those communities and say you can become a lawyer in the city, right at the pinnacle of the career, the most remunerative starter jobs, the most remunerative middle-aged jobs as well, working for the most extraordinary clients on the most complex of deals across a range of jurisdictions, etc. And those have essentially been quite difficult to access. So what happens with an apprenticeship is that the firm will pay you to work for them. You work 4 days a week, 1 day a week, you go to university, and you'll end up 6 years later as a qualified lawyer with that law degree, with the solicitor's qualifying exam, and you'll end up loan free. You'll have earned money all that time. By the time you're 24, you'll be a higher rate taxpayer in this country because you'll be earning inordinate sums of money, because that's the way this sector is opened. So when we started this work, Joe and I, there were 15 firms in the city who were doing this. Most are employ a handful. It's quite a difficult, clunky thing to put together, and firms just put it in the not enough people, too hard box. We really should, but haven't. So we brought together over 50 law firms, said, let's do this together, let's collaborate, let's find a platform, go out to schools, go out on social media, run big events, help law firms install these programs, help them bit with how they might recruit, make sure these apprentices are networked. And so that's been, successful. So we recruited over 100 between our about 40 firms this year who started with us in September. I know we're pleased. And then we're recruiting about 150. So we're running events from next week. We've got an event next week that we'll have 1,500 kids come to the 2 half days. Then we're going to 2 other cities. So it's become a really big thing. We've been shortlisted for 10 national awards this year, and these are outside of our sector as well as within our sector. We've won 4 or 5 of them. Joe Hughes has been awarded the Hall of Fame from one social mobility organisation. I got Champion of the Year from the UK SOMO Awards this year, just because what we've done is we've brought together a load of firms. It's been an extraordinary, wonderful piece of work for us. It's been great fun. We are on citycentury.co.uk if you want to have a look. It only works if you have an apprenticeship levy available. So imagine that's not in Australia. But I do think the concept of getting together to reach out and provide financial support and an ability to earn income for people is something that we could all be looking at. And what you end up with, it sounds like it's charity, right? And it sounds like you're just going to, pick a person that's not earning very much and elevate them out. Now you get the most amazing people, because these people have to beat so many other people to the job that they are extraordinary. In your school year of 200, it is that one person that everyone goes, oh my God, that person's freakishly intelligent, wonderful. I refer to them as the Mozarts of their generation. And we find that the law firms are like, wow, this person is appreciative, works hard, looks at a book and has understood it, eye for detail, organised, gets it done, can have really, really deep, meaningful intellectual conversations because they understand stuff, because their brain is... So it works really well. Yeah, so it's lovely. It's a lovely piece of work, and I'm really proud of it. I'm sort of at the latter stages of my career. I think this is really nice, legacy to leave. And in that bit about, what drives me is removing the layers that stop people having access to opportunities. We've absolutely done that. So I am, inordinately proud of the work. So
it's extraordinary. Thank you so much for being an innovator in the legal industry.
Yes, I came second this year in the UK, what was it, British LGBT Awards on the Trailblazer category. Now, 2 things about that. One, if you're running a British LGBT Awards annually, why I'll call that Queer of the Year? And if you're going to within that thing offer a Trailblazer, why is that not the Trailgazer route?
So you're also going to innovate the language for the entire... Yes, do that, yeah. It depends what your husband says if you take that on as well.
Indeed. Well, I'm happy to go in that highs as long as I don't do the work. Queer It's natural, isn't it? Anyway, they didn't do it.
It's amazing. But really, thank you for the service you're doing. That we can learn a lot. I know Australia, America, many countries can learn a lot from what you and your friend have created.
Well, and you know what's particularly lovely about this piece is as these people come into the organizations and as they get the numbers, they change the sector, right? They improve the sector. They better the industry because they bring in diverse views, because they have different, they have different qualities, because they look at things in a different way, because they are so talented that they do really well. So therefore they validate those that come behind them. There are probably 2, maybe 300 in the city at the moment. Within 3 or 4 years, there'll be 1,000, right? So
of course,
that's a big, 1,000 means that our annual conference has to be in a bigger hall. And probably that we'll be able to afford Danny Minogue to come on and do the art.
Is the UK all about Danny, not Kylie these days, is it? Ooh.
No, I love them both. I've always felt
just thinking.
Danny's had to work a bit harder, I always think, and she's not all opportunities. Remember, she was the one that went for the Neighbours audition, and I think I got right. And Kylie came along.
Kylie got it instead.
Yes, that must rankle. But yes, so it's been found. Yeah, it's been really lovely.
It's amazing because I know there isn't Linklaters in Australia, but you've got a partner law firm, Allen.
Yeah, which is amazing.
And which is an amazing law firm. And the chief people officer, Sam Turner, who is part of our community, is someone I know.
We did not know either.
Yes.
He's family. They are family.
Oh, we are, exactly. So it's time for a conversation. I'm meeting up with her in November, so I will absolutely be arranging something.
At your expense, at Alan's expense. Available funds. Could time it with Sydney Mardi Gras, that would be really helpful.
Even better. We've got a business case. Finally.
Here's the thing you don't know, Rugare. For 5 years, I ran a dance troupe on London and Brighton, Mardi Gras Gay Pride. So I had, so this was in the early 2000s, and we literally did routines to, in fact, Danny, Kylie, don't think we did Madonna, Cher, etc., Britney. But yeah, so I've done that as well, which was really good fun. So that's part of my backstory. And my dance troupe was audition free. That was important.
Yes.
And it was sexual orientation, gender, etc. free as well. You came along because I always think that allies to the queer community are queer themselves. I think they're included in the queer community. So I just wanted to make that.
Absolutely.
So available somewhere on the dark web, some of our routines.
I was going to say, you now need to send me all of that footage of everything you've done from now and your past for this episode, of course.
My husband did find a VHS video with it on, so I've got to try and work out how to put that into digital form.
That's awesome. Now, some very specific questions.
Sure.
What does forging your own path mean to you?
I think it's that thing I was saying before. Just sort of, what's the dream, right? That takes a little bit of time. Then make that dream a bit bigger, and then work out what you need to do to get there, and then pull in people to help you along the way. I think most people are extraordinarily helpful if they're asked and or flattered by your approach. So I would definitely pull people around. I would say be open about that. Be tell people where you want to get to. I always at my last firm said, if Linklaters call, I will go. So that I really love it here, but where I want to end up is there, because I sort of want to tell my mum and dad that I made it. Me being able to tell my dad before he died that I'd made it to this firm was important to him, and for me, maybe less important to him. But so I would say that I think try and be really intentional about the career journey. So where is it? How do I get there? Is this helping me to get there? If it's not, why the hell am I doing it? And should I not be spending, what energy I have doing something that's going to be and put yourself sort of a bit more center in your negotiation. So I use a phrase called self-agent to say it's to agent yourself, be your own client. What would you tell you if you were a client about their career?
Absolutely. And right here, right now, one of the things in forging my own path is I'm coming to Linklaters and I'll be doing some leadership workshops for people to be fully self-expressed in partnership with Patrick McCann.
So we look forward to it.
Can't wait. We often avoid failure. It is typically associated with being weak and not enough. Can you tell me a time when you felt you failed and you felt weak and not enough?
Yeah, sure. So I was made redundant in 1995. This was my last legal job, and I'd worked there for just under a year. I contracted hepatitis. I became very ill very quickly, and I had to go off ill. And that firm let me go. They wrote some not very nice letters as part of that, with little digs in, which was not helpful when I was very, very, very ill. And I definitely then felt like a complete failure because that was, I think I essentially knew that was probably the end of my legal career. It turned out it was the end of my legal career, but definitely not the end of my career. So once I was 3 or 4 months later, once I was well enough, I applied for jobs and I was offered, I think I was offered 2 or 3 legal jobs and 1 non-legal job. And I went for the non-legal job, which I'm really pleased about. But I was at my lowest then. At the time, I thought that I could only really work in a supermarket stacking shelves, and there's nothing wrong with that job. But I had got 3 degrees by this stage, or at least 3, graduate qualifications, and that didn't seem like necessarily the most appropriate of choices to work in retail. And I have an aversion to thinking about failure. I think failure is really judgy, and I think it creates a down. So I like to think about experience, whether that's good, bad, or mediocre. Just what happened, right? So, and some of it can be extraordinarily helpful. So, if I give you this example, if you're driving along a motorway and you see a car crash, now you say that car crash is a failure and a bad thing, but you'll definitely drive better afterwards. Likewise, if you see someone driving really well, you might emulate them. So it could be anything. I just prefer not to think about failure. I just prefer to think about experience. And I've written again about this on LinkedIn. I think you should do that like every week, like on a Friday. What happened? What did I do? What did I learn? How can I deploy that somewhere else? Give myself a round of applause and move on. But yeah, that was a particularly difficult time for me for sure. And there have been loads of others.
Invaluable. Thank you for reframing that from failure to
I'm all about the
experiences.
I think you have to be really, really kind to yourself. You have to really be you have to be your own cheerleader.
Absolutely.
So, I'm all about constant affirmation. So, in my head, constantly I've got a thing going, well done, you've got in the right lift. Well done, you remembered your past today. Well done, you managed to turn on your well done, you remembered your password. It wasn't the case this morning, but anyway. Well done, you remembered how to get your password if you'd forgotten.
Yes.
So all of that, and I have that going on all the time, so that I am, I'm my own cheerleader.
Patrick, I have this thing where I say acknowledgement and celebration is the renewable clean energy to continue living life.
Nice. Yeah, I call it accelerated affirmation. So do them all the time.
Amazing.
Yeah, I do. No one else can, right? And if they are, and they're strange, they're probably a stalker. That's.
Oh, is that what that looks like? Okay. Yeah. In Australia, we have this thing called the tall poppy syndrome. We don't celebrate people who are accomplished. And when they do accomplish something, we want to tear them down. Yeah. So today, I want to celebrate something you're proud of. What is one of your proudest moments that we can celebrate?
the thing I'm most proud of is my marriage and my relationship with Neil. We've been together for over 31 years. That's, that we really love each other. We constantly check in with each other and confirm this is a good place to be and that we're really happy. So that and my family. But within work, I set up a fund a couple of years ago, which you mentioned, Swissquiff, the social welfare fund, and that basically pays for people doing legal aid work pays for their qualification. So I've raised 1.1 million for that, which means over 100 people will become solicitors. I've done that alongside my job.
That's pounds, everybody. Pounds.
So it's quite a lot. I'm really proud of that in terms of my work. And then if I can have a third.
Greedy.
I've got a really amazing team here at work.
Yes.
It's taken me a few years for us all to gel, for us to work. But when I see how positive and happy and productive and collaborative and non-diva-ish they are, and how supportive, and how when I'm down, I know the 2 or 3 people will come in and go, like not a member of my team, but a member of the team that leads my team. He gave me this. I love this. Called an emotional support dumpster fire, and underneath it said, "I'm fine. Everything is fine." So I just love that. But those are the sorts of things that go on in the team. So family, the fund, and the team, and maybe not in that order, but anyway.
I understand. Briefly, I have chai catch-ups with my husband every morning, and I went to the cafe by myself the other day, and the owner came up to me and said, "Do you live with your partner?" I said, "Yes." "Are you married?" "Yes, he's my husband." "Do you and she was like, "Oh, but you guys come here every day and you actually talk to each other." She was completely surprised that we live together and we still talk and connect and laugh and hold hands and hug.
Yeah, that's so lovely. We have a similar thing in our house. It's called a whinge window. I'm allowed to come in at the end of a work day, and I will complain about something, but I've only got 5 minutes. So Neil's job is just to listen. He doesn't have to sort it. He doesn't have to empathize. He just has to stand there with a fairly bored expression across his face, and then he whinge window, closing, 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 closing. And as he's doing it, I'm speaking faster and faster and faster. And I go, "Oh, he's buttery." So I recommend a whinge window.
I love it. It's going to be a new coaching tool.
It is, just get it out. That's fine. Yeah, let's move on.
Let's move on. How do you keep joy in your life?
And my dogs, in essence, yeah. So Neil and I went away with his family for 5 days to Rome, came back yesterday. My dogs had been at doggy daycare, and when you come home and the dogs are beside themselves with joy that you're there, they're barking, they're whimpering, they're snuggling up to you, they're running up and down the stairs. That's my joy, right? So I work really hard to give them the life I would like to lead, which is lots of sleeping, lots of going for nice walk, eating, lots of cuddles, lots of strokes. So that's a really big thing for me, is that I give them a really brilliant life. So they are what bring me joy. Apart from that, I have a really, really strong squad. I have a group of friends, some work, some from gym teaching days, some from clubbing days, some who happen to be neighbours, and they take what I do seriously, but they take me not at all seriously at all.
Yes.
And whenever I'm getting too big for my boots, they're like, but whenever I need someone to go, "Yeah, that's awful. How dare they? Yeah, you're right. They're wrong." They do that. I have been in messy situations with them over 20, 30 years. In fact, photos when we were clubbing back in the day, and there were camera phones, but they're my they really bring me joy. Right? And we're on Instagram, WhatsApp, text, Facebook, whatever. Uh, every day there are 10 or 20 memes on Instagram from my friends. So, all of that brings me joy.
Beautiful. Beautiful. I have my girls. We call ourselves the Wisdom Council.
Love. Yeah, I didn't know. I don't think we could call ourselves the Wisdom Council. Not unless it's ironically.
Exactly. Everything. So I've got so there's Carol. So Carol has been my right hand lady, and she's like my other brain. So we workshop. She's also neurodiverse, so we workshop everything together. So when our brains come together, it's magic. Then there's Selena. Selena is probably 20 years older than I, and she just gets me. I will say one thing, and she's like, "Yeah, everything is so easygoing." Kate, we come and talk with an agenda. So we will talk the moment we meet. We've got our agenda, and it's non-stop intense for 2-3 hours, and then we pass out because of all the joy of having accomplished everything we wanted in the conversation. And then there's Savanti as well, who comes in and out in all of this with me.
Wow.
My girls. I love it.
Yeah. Mine are Jojo, Cassandra, Sheena, Helena, Emma, Roger, Daniel, Angelo, my husband Neil. That's it, I would say. And I've got two amazing colleagues, Ali and Dot here, who are my sort of second in commands. They've been such a strength for me.
That's amazing. Now you get to ask me a coaching question. What would you like to ask me, Patrick?
Yeah, so I would. How do you deal with working out what you want to do next? How do you work out what you want to do next?
Gosh, that's a very good question. So, my brain is always active. So I already have plans for the next 20 years. So ideas.
Okay.
Yeah. So I already have a list of 20 other books I want to write, movies I want to produce, opportunities I would like. So it's all written. So it's not just in my head. I actually write it down. It's organized in a document. And so when I'm inspired, so for example, I think of my book, I'm thinking, how can I have this written as a
nice to advertise a book? Nice to advertise a book twice in this.
Well, it's a beautiful segue. What can I say? But there's the Mozart Requiem, and I was thinking, well, what would that be like to actually create the Rugare Gomo Requiem? So that's an idea. And I know nothing about music, by the way, but I already have like a 4-part series of, the beginning of my life where I'm the innocent person, the music is nice and calm and uplifting. And then, those shoddy areas of my life as well. Mm-hmm. So I already picture the structure of that. So I capture all those ideas. And then when I'm in conversation with somebody, let's say, a musician, a violinist or pianist, I'm like, what do you think about this idea? So I don't necessarily know what's going to show up in any moment. I'm present for the opportunity, but it all starts within. And I write it out.
Wow. Gosh. So you have a much longer term view than I do. So I've got a vague thing over here, and I got very comfortable with it can be vague.
Yes.
And then my view tends to be so I can put things into my text to myself going bits. So I know I don't have to remember it. So I don't have to use up my brain power to remember. Yes. I know it, and I got comfortable that it's vague and I haven't worked it out. My challenge is once I grab hold of something, I have to execute it there, really, in that moment. So my thing is just making sure I don't tip over into task acceptance too quickly, because then it becomes too much. So it used to be as soon as I thought an idea, I had to execute it, because I would think I can't remember it. But I am now comfortable with to-do lists and stuff like that. But I certainly know vaguely what I want to do in the next 5 years, not what I want to do in the next 10. I know relatively clearly what I need to do in the next year. I have a good idea and could write down what I need to do in the next month. And my to-do list is about the next week. And I'm constantly working on that for sure.
It's fascinating because maybe, and I think this, I don't know if this is to do with the neurodiversity. I have no idea. But for myself, I won't sleep till I actually write down the detail. So my brain plays on it. And then, so for example, the book, the idea came about 4 years ago since when I started it. But I was very happy for it to come out in 2024. So we're planned and really, so that's how typically my brain works, and which gives me joy. Because again, it's also aligned with the way I experience joy. But then I have the reverse, because sometimes I can wait too long on an idea. So I have to then sometimes push myself to bring something to life now rather than the someday one day.
It's short jobs I have to do right now. So I'll give you an example. Last week I was at an event called City for LGBT, which is a charity that tries to get wealthy organizations and the people working them in a room and get them to donate money to good causes. So I went to that. I explained to them I don't have money. I was coming up to the end of the month. I have already given several thousand this year pounds to LGBT. And I've also, my LLP program raised £30,000 because that's part of the mechanism that I put in for 13 queer charities. So I literally went and I said, I can't do this. Anyway, they had this bidding system thing whereby you pledged to give money. So obviously I'm caught up in the enthusiasm. I'm pledging. There's a QR code which indicates that, if you go on the QR code, you can donate the money immediately. So even before the thing has started, I'd gone on the QR code, I donated the money. And then they go around going asking for pledges about, but I've already done it. I just did it now. So there became this constant refrain that I said, I'm pledging this much, but I've already done it online. And then it became the whole room go, but he's already done it online. Because I couldn't not execute that piece of work. I couldn't pledge it and then wait for an email to come. I had to do it in that moment. And I remember having to say to another law firm, will you stop bullying me? Because at one point they said, we'll pledge some money if he doesn't do it online for the next thing. And then now you're really affected. I have to do the job, right? I can't settle. So there are similarities there for sure. So you always want to use me to organize stuff. I've got much better, as I say, at not accepting that task application piece. So I used to organize every one of my friends. One of my friends used to call me the soccer mom. She's like, you organize everything. The favorite phrase of my friends, what's the plan, Patrick? Which meant, I got to accept the task and then execute the plan. And I've got much better with them now, saying I will accept the invitation to come. You do everything else. And that's recalibrates it.
That's good.
Lovely.
Amazing. Now we're going to go into one of my favorite rounds, the BAM lightning round, where you get to share some of your incredible resources and mind-blowing answers. No pressure.
Manager expectations on that one.
Mind-blowing answers. What is the best advice you've ever received?
Probably my dad, bless his soul. And there were a few pieces, but certainly talk to everyone. He had 500 people at his funeral. Take the work seriously. Do not take yourself seriously. And for God's sake, have a laugh. So those three bits are pieces that I take with me.
Extraordinary. What is one of your personal habits that has led to your success?
I think we've touched on it now, but just I think my neurodiversity in terms of getting the job done, right? So I do not leave jobs undone, and I execute fairly fast, I think. Make all sorts of bad decisions quickly, make all sorts of errors, judgy word, but, make all sorts of mistakes, judgy word, in the emails that go out, but at least the bloody email went out. So I can be a bit slapdash, but I always think like something that's 95% okay is better than nothing that's 100% okay. So I try and get stuff out there. People are always like, "Oh my god, your speed." Particularly on LinkedIn, I'm pretty fast on LinkedIn, but also with my emails, I process several hundred emails every day, and so I'm sort of now pretty fast. Yeah.
So my life is this big, but my energy is this big. So I am when the moment I wake up, I am in execution. So I accomplish a lot in little time. It, because I'm also fully self-expressed. So even though my battery is this big and my life is this big, I'm able to execute because I'm free internally.
Yeah. No, I get that. Yeah, and I'm certainly always on the go. I'm always doing 2 or 3 quads. Not extraordinarily now. I've actually managed to.
How are you preparing for AI in your everyday life?
So I definitely use AI, but much less than I should. I tend to use it to analyze, do due diligences on, or create product for me. I've not yet got to the stage where I trust AI fully. And so I haven't quite worked out yet for myself where the bit is between putting an instruction in, getting a result out, and say publishing that on LinkedIn. I'm certainly seeing on things like LinkedIn more and more AI drafted stuff. It has a sort of a very similar thing. It's all a bit, it just feels like a slightly off translation from a different language. So I started doing a bit of that and then tinkering and then publishing. And I've gone back to publishing myself on things like LinkedIn. But when I'm doing things like speeches or plans for sessions or, writing notes pages for courses, I will use it then. And as I say, we analyze, we use it to analyze lots of documents, but I really wish there was a functionality where it went, by the way, this bit I'm making up, so that you could check that bit, because it's then difficult to know what and how to check that the number given you is in fact a number that has reality. Within the firm, we're very on board of this. We are, we've bought lots of products that will help us. We are, everybody has been through some foundational training. We're now rolling out more co-pilot type training. We're in collaboration with my alma mater, King's College London, running for our sort of champions, some more in depth. Where is AI going? How do we use large model languages, etc., LLMs and what have you? So we're seeing where that goes. I'm sort of a bit grateful that I'm at this end of my career rather than the other end, because there's a lot. So yeah, we'll see how long I'm around for.
I can understand. I write everything myself. So on my LinkedIn posts, because it's my self-expression, my life, my voice. And I think that's important, that aspect, that part of the humanity. And of course.
And I think people will notice there's more and more stuff being published on LinkedIn. And I think that's through people not always writing themselves. And I think that's sort of a shame. I like the connection that you can make with someone because they're being here.
And it's very noticeable on your LinkedIn because it's your self-expression, that the rainbows, that the words, your mind is there, your ideas. It's amazing. Thank you for continuing that.
I really like writing. I'm really pleased to, be one of only 2 or 3 in the big firms that are listed in the top 20 legal influencers, links influencers, and that's been 4 quarters in a row, which I'm really pleased about. It's been really helpful to me as well, because I've been able to talk about my dad, I've been able to talk about queer people, I've been able to talk about my life, I've been able to talk about being attacked in the street last year and how that was, and going to police, and I was able to talk about being a juror on a trial which was the gang rape of a 13-year-old. And I've been able to bring those sorts of, plus the projects that I'm working on, and plus the work that we do here at Linklaters, and also to talk about particular people as well, including one great man who died. I just wrote a little eulogy, and that went quite big. So I'm pleased about stuff like that. There's a certain what I'm noticing in the legal world is there's a certain amount of sort of, I'd almost say the equivalent of doodling on a notepad that's now being published, and I don't know if the quality is staying there. Some of the stuff seems to be being written in order that there's something written every single day, and I don't know that we need to publish every day. I publish 2 or 3 times a week, and I try and make each one of those purposeful.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which one of your role models would you have over for a dinner party, and why?
Yeah, so Jimmy Somerville, who people know, he was lead singer with Bronski and then the Communards, and then was his own successful 1980s, 90s musician, known for his voice. Very out queer political guy when that wasn't the trendy thing to do, and that was career threatening. I've met him a few times. We were in a couple of political groups together. He wouldn't remember me, but he is the person I most admire in the world, because when I was 13, 14, he brought out that first album, Age of Consent, which was about the inequality that existed for the queer community versus the unqueer community. Oh, unqueer. I know that's fair.
You're to write that down right here, right now.
Unqueer. No, I circled it and I'd squared it. So that wow.
Right.
And so him, and I'd really like to just 2 things. I'd like to find out a bit more about what drives him, and then I want to know why he's not going on tour and hasn't been on tour for 20 years. And middle-aged gay men like me that want to relive our youth, and I need him to sing Small Town Boy live. That's what I want to know.
Maybe he's just waiting for you to knock on the door and have that slight, inspiration to do that. Maybe. What do you want to be remembered for, Patrick?
I think I'd like to be remembered as a fun guy, for getting stuff done, for being kind, I'd like to be known a bit for my intelligence. And I'd just like to be able to leave things that make a positive difference for people going forward. I'm really influenced by, I did the eulogy at my dad's funeral, and the church was full. There weren't 500 people. I was very, very, very sad when my dad died. I was emotionally very close to him, even if we didn't necessarily talk all the time. And I just really, really liked him as a person, really admired him. And I would love, I used to think it's fine, I just want to be buried and be gone, and that's fine. But actually, because of that, I sort of, it isn't selfish, it probably is, I sort of want people to just have a good feeling when they remember me. Is what I would like.
Thank you so much, because I definitely have good feelings right here, right now. And you're hilarious, and you're kind, you're generous. And yeah, I'm glad that you think so, because I know you have that little voice and, celebrating you every second. Well done in remembering the password. Well done.
My husband I used to say to my husband, who's the funniest man you know? And he'd say, your dad. And so it was only after his funeral that I can now say to him, who's the funniest man you know? To say, let it go, but your dad was funnier. So Whitney was. Yeah.
Like, this conversation was meant to be only an hour, but we've gone for an hour and a half, and you've been so generous, and I've taken so much of your time. I just could not stop. And I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful. I am so grateful, and you have inputted in my life and inspired me, and I've that people listening today, will be completely inspired by what you've created, and you bring your full self, being a trailblazer and a pioneer in this world. That's Patrick McCann. Thank you so much. How can people reach out and connect with you?
So I'm on LinkedIn, Patrick McCann, McCann. It's a picture of me with my dog, one of my dogs. And yes, my dog's much better looking than I am. So you could just find me on LinkedIn. That's the easiest way. I don't really use the other social media. Otherwise, if you Google me at Linklaters, I come up there as well. But so LinkedIn is where I sort of mostly communicate. And I'd love to have more people, connect with me for sure.
Please connect with Patrick. I connected with Patrick on LinkedIn, and he was generous immediately. Yes, when I asked you to do this podcast, we were like, "Yeah,
It's very fast.
the executioner."
Execute, take.
Exactly. Done, 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 done.
You see, I don't know when you do this, but I write things on my to-do list which I've executed, which weren't on there. So if I've done something, I tick, yeah, I do that all.
That's wonderful. So thank you so much again for your generosity. Sweeney, can't wait to do other conversations with you in another time in a different way.
That would be lovely. But also, hold up your book again, because we all need to go and get your book. And then get that. I'm going to get that up.
It's well
done.
Available globally, Amazon, and if you're in the United States, USA, Target, da 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 da. I say
I'm going on Amazon as we speak. Now on my to-do list, right? So I have to get all in 3 minutes.
And then when we meet, I have to sign the book for you, and I write a post or belong. Wonderful. Well, thank you, Patrick.
Sure.